Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you are watching here in the Philippines and all over the world. And welcome to my podcast, the RJ Ledesma Podcast. In my podcast, I interview the country's pioneering business personalities and entrepreneurs to learn more about how they think about doing business. What are their success secrets? Can we replicate those success secrets for ourselves? How they innovated their businesses during this pandemic, but more importantly, what business opportunities do they see emerging in this new normal? Now, is there a business personality or entrepreneur that you would like me to interview here on the podcast? Please let me know. I would love to learn from them. Just drop me a message. We are also live right now on Kumu, CBRC TV, Global Pinas TV, and the Bounce Back Network. And tonight, the reason why I really chased after this guest is because there's been so many requests to have him here on the podcast. Tonight, we'll be featuring Tryke Gutierrez, who is the CEO and co-founder of Tier 1 Entertainment, one of Southeast Asia's biggest esports talent platforms. Currently, Tier 1 Entertainment is redefining the gaming and esports industry. It is a venture-backed esports, gaming, and entertainment company that develops and signs top-tier content creators around the globe and is the home of world champions Blacklist International. They were founded back in 2017 by esports veteran Tryke Gutierrez, cosplay and gaming star Alodia Goseng Fiao, and serial entrepreneur Brian Lim. And together, they sought to revolutionize the esports landscape here in Asia by focusing on the development of truly talented, top-caliber personalities. Tier 1's mission is to connect brands with unique gaming audience like never before. And Tier 1 has over 1,000 talents across its main brand and amplify its streamer collective brand. Currently, it manages 4 professional esports teams under its Blacklist International Esports label. And on top of that one, they're also developing their own clothing and lifestyle brand with Tier 1 Limited Collection. So these guys are really trying to conquer the world here right now. So can I please introduce World Conqueror here on my show right now? Please welcome Mr. Tryke Gutierrez. Tryke, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sir RJ. Thank you.
Tryke, I have to tell you, when I started this show and I decided to make the shout out for people to invite guests on the show, yours was the name that kept on coming out again and again and again. So finally, I'm so thankful to have you here. I got a message from Carlo Delantar from Gobi Partners saying, thanks for having Tier 1. And I got other people saying, thanks, I finally want to hear from Tier 1 here right now tonight. So Tryke, thanks for the time. I know you're a busy guy. So let's start off before everything else. Tier 1, really a lot of strides that you're doing. But what's the biggest news that you guys have for 2022? What's the biggest thing that Tier 1 is doing over here in 2022 that you want to share with all the people listening to the podcast?
Well, I think the biggest news for Tier 1 for this year is really, of course, the expansion plans. Basically because we've been talking about it for the past months, and I think people haven't really fully grasped, like the level of expansion that we want to be able to do in the rest of Asia, right? Because it's one thing to cover Philippine esports, but it's another thing to really get into the other geographies and kind of like replicate your playbook that you created here in the country. So obviously, like that alone is a big challenge, and plus the fact that we also have something prepared for Web 3. So I think
Wow.
that's also very exciting. I haven't really shared that yet, but generally these are the two things we're really focused on.
Give us a little flavor, by the book. High quality flavor of what you're doing for Web3 with Tier 1.
There is a technological platform that we're developing. But before that, what we're doing right now is just like what we kind of like created in the Web 2 space. We're creating educational platforms and platforms for KOLs. So, for instance, Amplify was created because there was so much demand for gaming creators that we didn't expect. Because initially, when we created Tier 1 Entertainment, it was just designed to really support 24 people. But what we realized is that it's not just there are so much demand for opportunities in gaming. In fact, there were so much talents that wanted to be supported, right? So because of that, we created the Amplify program, which paved way for more talents to come in into the company. And then basically, we want to be able to extend that to Web 3. So that platform is going to be called Alliance, which we will announce soon, which is going to be like a collective group of Web 3 credible KOLs.
You know what I like the idea is that how I see your business basically is that there are so many that you're getting into, but you're like a serial entrepreneur, but in the sense that I've been taking a class for Alibaba, the Alibaba Netpreneur class, where Jack Ma talks about building an ecosystem of different companies, but they are all organically connected together, especially in the head of the creator. And basically, that's what you're doing. You're building a lot of different companies, but with a sort of like an overarching theme that connects
Yep.
all of them. Is it correct?
Yeah, I think the overarching theme of what Tier 1 is doing is it creates a value chain to the content creators and the layer of influence that there is when it comes to esports and gaming. So what I mean by that is whether you're a commentator, a cosplayer, all of these personalities, the molds that were technically created just with the freelance world is something that we're trying to institutionalize, right? Like at first, like for me personally, when I started out shoutcasting, I didn't know where to start. I would just really kind of like research a lot of things on YouTube, and then from there, I kind of like created a brand of my own. But I know for a fact that an industry won't thrive with just purely freelancers, and thus an institution is needed for them to be able to have the proper guidance and the proper systems so that like they can really fully scale what they do. So generally what I'm saying here is that Tier 1 is here to help and guide people in the space, whether you are a shoutcaster, a Web 3 personality, a cosplayer, or an esports player. Like as long as the common denominator is gaming, we want to be able to create systems and frameworks for those types of people.
Fantastic. And I have to say this one. It's great. I'm learning so much from you listening right now. And there's sometimes I have to take a break and say, can we step back a bit and explain a bit more if you don't mind, Trike? Because there are people listening to us who are very much involved in esports and gaming, and the people first-time startup entrepreneurs going, "Wow, I really want to understand a bit more about Trike and the business that they're trying to do." And having said that, you said that you're taking your playbook for what you're doing here in the Philippines to the rest to other countries, other geographies. I read that in 2021, you're actually expanding to Japan. So, what are the geographies that you guys are planning to get into? And how did you choose these geographies that you guys want to get into for Tier 1?
So I guess just to give you a general idea of what Tier 1 Entertainment is, we are in the intersection of media properties, esports, and creator management, right? But all of those things all folds under the gaming industry. So we're fully focused on gaming, but we're doing multiple things. So when I talk about media properties, it means shows, podcast, reality shows. We've co-produced something with ABS-CBN something similar to PBB called the
Mhm.
Gaming House, and we plan to do more reality shows like that. For the media property side, we have 1,000 creators like what you mentioned earlier, and of course we are also the home for Blacklist International, the world champions of both Mobile Legends and CODM. So in a way, we own the Lakers of gaming. We handle the showbiz personalities of gaming, and we also produce the shows for these people. And basically, that's what we do. So all of these came about with an epiphany and the idea of really patterning it to K-pop. The K-pop model that created Big Bang, Blackpink, BTS, the companies behind those groups are our inspiration with Tier One Entertainment.
Yeah.
But we want to do
And,
it for gaming.
and this is interesting, Trike. I know that maybe it's something that you came across intuitively, but I recall si Josiah Go of he's the guy behind Mansmith and Fielders, a really great marketing guru. He used to say that innovation comes from taking things that you see from outside of your industry and then bring it into your industry. And I like the idea that you sort of like took the K-pop model and said, let's use that and bring it over here to gaming. It's sort of like gaming is the overarching theme, and from there
Yes.
it kind of organically grows from what are the different, forgive the word, the different income streams that you can create, or how can you monetize the different income streams which come out from gaming. Is that correct to my
Yeah.
mind?
I think the best way to answer that question, or in a way that inquiry, is uh I can share the story of like how I came about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually,
Because
well, if you don't mind, like I'm gonna save that story from Mamaya Content because it's a really great story that I want you to tell. But before that, before we get into that, ano ba yung iba't ibang bansa pala na papasok yung yung
okay.
I'm excited for you
So
to share that
we're
one over there.
currently present in Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia, and we want to also be present in Indonesia next, but we're holding on that for now. We're also present in Myanmar, so total of 5 countries basically, and we want to be in 6. We're
Bakit?
already
Why
present, by the way.
you were present there? Trike, I don't know. I hope you don't mind me asking. I mean, for me, what I find truly impressive is that it's us, the Philippines, leading the way in bringing out esports and gaming to these other countries. And for me, it's like technically you're like a Filipino multinational going out to all these different countries and establishing bases over there. What do you think gave us that sort of competitive advantage in your industry to be able to go there and bring your playbook there instead of, I guess, similar companies in their places coming over here?
Um, I think for one, it's really the sandbox that is esports. You know what I mean? Like esports has just developed like in the past 5 to 10 years, probably, right? At least from my perspective. And basically, the Philippines was at the forefront of it because of the great amount of gaming talents that we had in Dota. I feel like personally, because the bulk of the top players in the Dota space back then really came from the Philippines, and that
Mm.
created a whole infrastructure of businesses such as broadcasting companies, your comp shops, all of these revenue streams that initially came about in esports have really created a small economy of people who are capable of managing talents, creating broadcasts, creating content, and all that. And I think we were just ahead of the game that way. And then outside of that, I think it's also the fans, right? Like we have so much esports fans in the Philippines that I remember like one of my foreign partners, PGL from Europe, told me that if we can only ship the fans of the Philippines to any other country, then we would have probably done the event there, because logistically it's easier to mount an event elsewhere. But it's just the fans here are just different from anywhere in the world.
Wow. So parang kumbaga we've got more rabbit fans here in the Philippines than we do have uh I mean our fandom is comparable to the best fandoms in the world, especially when it comes to esports and e-gaming.
Oh yeah, I truly believe that. That's one. And second point for me is that I have always believed in the Philippines as a possible headquarters for a lot of companies. It's just that, like there's just a lot of limitations when it comes to foreign ownership, legalities, and
Mhm.
whatnot. So I think generally that's the issue. And obviously outside of that, like I feel like if you're a CEO or or a founder of a company, right? Like, why would you want to be here if you can be in Singapore or be in Hong Kong, right? So, like, all of these are realities, and for me personally, like, we're I can't say that we're the norm, but I can't also say that it's easy operating from here.
But having said that, okay, it's not so easy operating from here because of some legal and regulatory restrictions, no. But you choose to do it over here, and your partners are coming in, and then they're saying, you've got partners from all over the world saying, yeah, we want to work with you. What do you see basically? I hope you don't mind inspiring some of the people listening here right now. What is it about the Philippines and Philippine esports and gaming that people really like? That make it like that make us a beacon or make it something that people really want to invest in and see the potential in.
Well, the thing is, I think in terms of number one, our population, right? You have 110 million people in this country. And I think a lot of them are really gamers. Like in terms of numbers, more than 30% of our online population are already gaming. But
Wow.
these were numbers prior to the pandemic. I think post pandemic is more than that, given
So
the
I'm sure
rise of mobile gaming.
accelerate yan in the midst of the pandemic because they weren't doing anything but playing, I guess, on their
Yeah,
phones,
yeah.
no?
And also in the midst of the pandemic, that's when people made a jump from PC to mobile, right? And the barrier to
Okay.
entry from PC to mobile is just different, and thus it created an exponential growth for the base of gaming here in the Philippines. That's one. Second point, I think if you are, any foreign company or any foreign entity, you want to get into Southeast Asia because most of the bigger surge in terms of growth is in this market. You're looking at India, you're looking at China, you're looking at Southeast Asia as the three of the most anticipated, like growth market in the global space. And I feel like if you look into Southeast Asia, I mean, outside of Hong Kong, then you're only looking at Singapore and the Philippines as countries that are really like truly English speaking in a way where it's just there's so much talent that speaks English. So with that, of course, if you're an investor or like a foreign entity or whatnot, you would still want to on a base level converse and be able to kind of like share your thought to the founder that you're talking to. So I think from that perspective, why not? Like why not the Philippines? But of course, on the other hand, there are so much problems like the basic requirements of running a business are not here. As much as I'm a proud Filipino, that's also a reality. And I think hopefully, like the private sector and the government works on that to improve. But I feel like as long as we don't fix all that, like the tendency is eventually all of the companies, even us, will eventually bring more of our operations elsewhere.
Yeah, I understand. Understand. It's a sentiment shared by many, but hopefully, with the growth of your industry, there will be more understanding legislators coming to provide a better regulatory environment for you guys, especially what you guys contribute to the country. Now, one of the struggles I had, Trike, when speaking with you earlier on was that I was trying to think how do I mean I like for me I sort of understand the industry, but let's say that I had my dad who's 78 years old. Then I try to explain to him, Dad, ito yung ginagawa ng tier 1. How would you laymanize or explain to, let's say, parents or grandparents ano bang ginagawa ng tier 1 so that they can understand it much better?
I guess to badly put, we're the Viva slash ABS-CBN slash Ginebra of gaming.
Parang kinombine mo yung TV entertainment and then gaming entertainment and parang ginanyan mo na lang. Then that's what you guys are here right now.
Yeah, because we own the basketball team, the volleyball team, and the whatever team. And then you are also the showmakers, and at the same time, we are the talent management, right? So, in a way, Star Magic, ABS, Ginebra, Viva, Viva Max, I don't know, and whatever team there is, diba?
Oh, galing. That's why kanina I wanted to stop muna and stop and get your story because you're gonna make it kwento. And that's what I find truly inspiring is entrepreneurs like yourself who really just found an opportunity and grew it to where it is today. And
Mhm.
often I tell people, the when I talk to people and give talks on entrepreneurship, we look at the entrepreneurial mindset. The people started off with what is the pain point that you were originally trying to solve? What problem did you have that led to this one? So if you don't mind, let's talk now about the secret origin of Tier 1, even before Tier 1 was formed. I mean, you were an esports veteran before Tier 1 was formed. So can we take a step back? So help us through your own journey. Where did everything start off for you?
So it started off for me because I actually went to Lasal way back in
Animo.
2005, right?
Yeah.
Um, Back then, gaming wasn't even a thing. Like it wasn't a job. It was nothing, right? Like esports wasn't even a term yet. And I was playing computer games across the school, basically in the multiple computer cafes. Eventually, one of the computer cafe became the first company that hired me, which was Mineski's, because Mineski had multiple chains of cafes, cafe chains in the multiple parts of the country, right? So I joined them for a year.
Sorry, I'm just curious. Are you undergrad of computer science, of business management, or
I graduated organizational communication.
liberal arts college, CLA?
Yeah, liberal arts. Yes, yes, yes.
Wow. And then so Mineski hired you as a doing what
So
initially?
Mineski hired me initially as a graphic designer. I actually had an option back then to work for a Japanese company because I speak the language, with a six-digit salary per month. But I opted to, follow esports because it was just, like my passion. And back then I never thought that I would be joining a computer cafe company, but I did, to follow esports. Then eventually the reality was, like I didn't imagine myself putting up multiple cafes at the same time to be able to, like support the esports ecosystem, because I felt like with the knowledge that I had with organizational communication, I was coming from a point of advertising. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I was looking into the global esports space, and I'm like, hey, all of these ecosystems exist without computer cafes. So I wanted to create a model that wasn't reliant on computer cafes, because I saw Korea and the whole PC bang, like surge. But eventually, like their esports ecosystem wasn't really relying on that, rather than a healthy, like advertising system. So advertising industry basically for esports. So from there, I started out. I came out of Unesco. I resigned and joined MSI to figure out what do the brands think, like how do they think, like how do they support all of these endeavors and activations, to just for me to have an understanding of like what is required for
Try,
any product to be supported.
this is interesting because it's sort of like you had sort of like a longer term vision and you created your own career path. Para sabi mo
Yes.
na, okay, I learned something from Mineski and I want to take this one and I want to get here, but I got to learn multiple things along the way. What is that key takeaway from Mineski, and what did you want to achieve? What did you want to para
um
at the time ultimately achieve from there?
I think what Mineski really taught me is the passion, the direction, and the hope that esports can really progress. The business model I personally admired, but it wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to create a different ecosystem for esports outside of computer cafes, just because
Mhm.
like I wasn't really passionate with creating cafes altogether, like 100 plus, taking care of all of these franchise people. Like that wasn't me. And also I wasn't the founder there, right? Like there were other founders. I was just
Mhm.
working for them. So I had another like kind of like path. But of course, like I fully respect the direction and vision and everything. But it's just I had to take a different path. I had to take a
Okay.
different path. So my perspective was, I was looking into the global esports ecosystem back then, and most of them really um, created because of advertising, whether it's events, whether it's digital products or whatever. Not like it was really sponsorships, right? So of course, the first step that I had to take was I had to study how sponsorships worked. So I went in to join MSI Philippines for a year, handling the gaming laptop brand. And basically from there, I understood what were the metrics, what were the KPIs that were needed by these brands. And then eventually I reverse engineered it after that. So I just stayed for a year there, and then joined one of the events that we actually sponsored. So that was Esports Festival in Cebu. So Brian Lim, who is my co-founder now in Tier 1, I met back then, who is a great mentor of mine, to be honest, and he really helped me grow as a person and as a leader. And basically, like for me, he showed me the way of creating products that are capable of being sponsored, right? So from there, that's when my advertising journey in esports kind of like started. So from 2012 to 2016, I was handling my own PNL. I was running
Wow.
multiple events. I was trying to figure out how to find opportunities. And then from there, I was doing that from 2012 to 2016. And then in 2016, my biggest break was the Manila Major, which we organized a $3 million event for Dota 2. We were able to fill the MOA arena with 18,000 people.
Wow.
We had four languages in terms of broadcast and everything, and right after that, I quit because yeah, like for me, like events weren't really my thing. That's something that I realized also, that the problem with events is that you go into event to an event happy, excited, everything is perfect. But right after that, despite all of the sweat, blood, and tears, there will always be a negative feedback, because nothing can be perfect. Like no event can be perfect. So
Mhm.
in a way, that was taxing to me. So I left it in 2016, and then eventually I thought of a new idea, which was Tier 1 Entertainment.
Wow. I want to step. I want to take a look at your experience for that's about 5 or 6 years of your life. No, that you took from there. The first thing is you learned so much. I guess business sense. You picked up a lot of that one and how to monetize. I guess for sponsorship. What were the key takeaways from that experience that you got from that length of time that you were there?
Build a great product. I think that's the number one thing. And I think the definition of a great product is, one, it has a good image. There has to be, like it needs to be able to represent great things that brands would want to affiliate themselves with, whether it's good values, whether it's authenticity, whether it's legitimacy, whether it's a certain community that you represent, or an advocacy. You need to be able to have that product that is exciting enough for your consumers, so that the brands will come in, because you have a community that's literally like like following that product. I think that's the first thing. The second is build a great team. I think that's very important, right? Like in the whole journey that I had from 2012 to 2016, like every person that leaves is a great loss and is a great setback, especially if you're a startup, right? Actually, you
Mhm,
weren't a
yeah.
startup. You were like a starting company, as I can say, because you were most of it was bootstrap, right? So like you always have limited resources, you have limited people, and the question is, how do you keep people? How do you run things with limited resources? How do you do it? And I think the people that will be with you in that journey as a start is going to be very, very valuable for your failure and for your success. So I think it's very important to find good teammates. Number two. And I think number three, you really need to be resilient, because it's not, there will be a lot of rainy days. Like it's not gonna be fun. Like people will only share the highlights. That's the reality of it.
Oh,
But at night, sometimes for sure, like all of these entrepreneurs are like like anxious, or like panicking with what's
or
next or what to do.
sleepless. I can empathize with sleepless nights because you don't know how the business is doing or where's your payroll going to come from the following day. I mean that
Yes,
happens to
like there
entrepreneurs.
were there were there were multiple points when I didn't get my salary, just for the rest of my team to get a salary. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's just one sacrifice. It's just financial. I mean, the other sacrifices that you have to make is that, first, you really gotta swallow your pride and just be able to do what's needed. Like you need to sell if it can't be sold. You need to be able to recruit when people don't believe in you. You need to be able to push when people think that you're gonna fail. So I think all of these, to be honest, like it sounds inspiring that I got here, but I'm not sure if I want it for other people. No, like looking back at it now, like it's not as easy. Like you really need to want it.
Yeah, and I mean, as you're telling me this story, but I can feel it from my own entrepreneurial experience. I mean, people only talk about the highs, but people never talk about. I mean, it can be a mental health issue for some of the
Yes,
entrepreneurs, right?
for sure.
Because nobody realizes the kind of the downsides that you go through. Before we talk about the downside, I want to ask you, lang, what really resonated with me was your discussion of coming up with a really good product that people will want to affiliate with. Can you give me an example during that period of time? What product did you create that you're really proud of, that people affiliated themselves with, or that
Actually,
brands really came up
we
for?
only had two great products during that time, in my opinion. One was we did esports festival in Cebu, which was really unique because there wasn't any gaming festivals in the south, right? So every year we that was kind of like the pinnacle to the people of Cebu.
Mhm.
And because of that, like that became a destination for a lot of brands to really cover the market of gaming in Cebu. And Cebu is as hot as Manila, basically. So
Mm-mm.
that was kind of like one. The second was Esports Inquirer, because we were the first media publication that merged esports and a traditional media brand together. So Esports Inquirer was the first of its kind, which covered multiple esports news, and basically we had PTL and an online media that actually resonated to Gen Zs and millennials.
So now as I hear you speak, like, what I'm truly amazed by is the fact that it's the same thing, finding underserved opportunities, di ba? Finding pain points which little people didn't see, like Cebu, really a gold mine, but nobody really looking in that direction. But you were able to create it and create a demand for it at the same time, and find sponsors to come in. And for me, I find that particularly fascinating. But what I find even more fascinating about you, Trike, is that you left. And for me, I find that quite a ballsy move on your part to have. I mean, because you were, if you think about it, Trike, you were established. People knew who you were. I mean, you could have asked for more from the company that you were working for, but you chose to leave. Why did you choose to leave at that particular time? I know events weren't your thing, but what more were you saying that this is time for me to start doing my own thing? But what was it, part of your overall plan?
I was actually a stakeholder in that company already. However, I wasn't a co-founder. So the reason why I left are multiple reasons. I think number one, I wasn't really a person uh, that that really thrived in an environment that doesn't fully own the brand. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Because at the end
Yes.
of the day, that company called Philippine Esports Organization, its main vision was to bring esports to the traditional sporting events, such as the Olympics and the other things. And one media arm that we had was Esports Inquirer. But at a point, like, I wanted to have something of mine. I wanted to have control over the branding and the entity that I was kind of like bringing to the market in a way. That's one. Second is, I don't like events. Like, running events isn't my thing, just because I'm not as organized. One. Second, like, it doesn't appeal to my risk appetite, right? Like, you have what, 1 year of preparations for like a 2 to 3 day event, and then
Mhm.
everything goes in and then everything goes out, and then that's it. So I'm more of like a very marathon type of guy rather than a sprint guy. So I wanted something 24/7. I wanted more action in a way outside of those 2 to 3 days in a year. And then last but not the least, like, I wasn't fulfilled because you put up an event for somebody else, and then everybody's happy. Then what? Right? Like, I mean, I felt empty every after an event, every after every event, because first, I mean, I was promoting somebody else's game, somebody else's brand, and then people remembered the whole experience, maybe because it was a great IP or it was a great event, but that's about it. Like, they will eventually move on into the next one, into the next one, into the next one, and I felt like I was just a gun for hire, and I didn't want to be that. It's not a knock on any events company or anything, but it's just the way I felt.
Mhm.
So, and that's the reason why every time I meet an event organizer, now in tier one, I'm really doing my best to support them in whatever way I can, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is.
Wow. Um, and when you eventually left to put up tier one, sort of like, so I mean, whatever you put up right now, right? The company comes from, it's a result of your previous experiences that informs you. Then you look forward and you kind of say, okay, now that these are my previous experiences, I'm now seeing a new pain point that I can solve based on what happened to me in the past. So having said that, when you finally said, okay, I left events, I want to put up my own thing. What did you see in that horizon at that time? What were you trying to solve at this time? And that
Um,
eventually became what tier one
I
was.
think I think generally, just to share my general thinking is that all I wanted was really for the esports industry to become big, for it to get to the mainstream. Whatever it takes, I will do it, because I was a frustrated pro player that only joined tournaments once a year because there were only once a year tournaments during my time. And I never wanted any future generation of gamers to only have that opportunity. And thus, I did everything I can in multiple sectors of esports, of the esports ecosystem, knocking in each of the doors to open up those opportunities, right? And initially, I thought it was in Mineski. Eventually, I studied how MSI, kind of like thought in terms of supporting. Peso was a great platform for me to like learn, and at the same time create opportunities as well. But I wanted to be in a place where I can have the most impact in terms of creating opportunities. And and my dream, outside of becoming a pro player, and then eventually I became a shoutcaster. Like that's also one angle, but it's not related to this entrepreneurial conversation. But the best angle that I thought of was talent management. It wasn't just my idea; it was me and Elodia's idea, because when I quit, I talked to her because she's one of my closest friends, and she told me like, what if you manage me? And I'm like, I didn't do all that. I didn't study in La Salle, or I don't know what I know, just to like, just to manage you. Like, I don't want, that's too small for me. And then eventually we're like, what if you put up a talent management? What if you put up like a Viva? And I'm like, what if you put up like a K-pop company in gaming? Because I was really passionate about K-pop, and I was passionate about talent management. And that's when, it hit us like there's actually something there. So yeah, that's when Tier 1 was born with that idea.
Wow. So when you came together with Roger, so technically put gaming, K-pop, talent management, those are the kind of things that you put all together over there. With K-pop being sort of like the model that you would use
Yes.
to move this forward. What is the first thing that you guys had to do? Because I'm thinking to my mind, diba, you and Alodia were great because you had your capital is both Laway capital. I mean, you knew people, you knew the industry. But did you also bootstrap to start running the company? Tell us a bit more of how,
Yeah,
once
yeah.
you
I
had the idea
mean,
together, how did you
yes,
go
we
next?
did
What did you do next?
initially. Yes, we did initially. Before we got, so the earnings that we got, because we worked together in events as well, in that old company. So the earnings that we got basically from that, this new company in terms of like ideation and everything. And then after doing all that, we found a VC investor that believed in the concept. And that's when it actually hit me. You know what? This needs to be a VC backed company, because
I
that
see. I
is
see.
the perfect vehicle for us to really support esports. Because you know how private equity works, you know how, like regular entrepreneurial setups work. It will take ROIs, it will take multiple years for you to be able to kind of like fast track your growth. If you're in the franchise model, then you have other stakeholders, right? So I felt like in terms of finding the best foundation, VC was the right foundation for us, and it was just really like the perfect storm where we met this potential VC that just started out their VC fund for esports, and they were looking for a Southeast Asian company to invest in, and yeah, we were the first company that they invested in after a few months of operations.
So from the get go, you started to work now really with a VC. Is
No,
that
no, no,
right?
no. From the get go, we bootstrapped it, but
Are you
it's just a few
bootstrap muna?
months.
Okay. And then when you finally went to the VC and you, because usually the first pitch that you make to a VC is not actually what the company run. I mean, eventually the business model iterates along the way, right? What was that initial pitch that you had for the venture capitalist
It was it.
when you ah really
It
huh?
was it was the K-pop model.
The K-pop models what you told him that what
Yeah,
you would
I
do.
had a I had a so before I went to that VC meeting with Brian Lim, my co-founder, I watched multiple Shark Tank episodes. I was pretty familiar with the VC space myself because I'm really a brainiac in a way where I when I get to want to learn something, I really go all in and try to learn. So, like I went there with a concept, everything that we prepared the logo, we prepared the video, we wanted to show them what the Philippines was, why this model will work in esports and all that. And I think the video killed it, to be honest. The video is what killed it. My background and my experience and Alodia's, like following and everything, and Bayan's, like experience in entrepreneurship. I think all those three coming together with the right concept and in a way a good team that came from that events management company is what made them decide to invest. And I guess they didn't make a mistake.
Wow. Well, great job, Trike. And then when that happened, though, what was, say, the first major milestone, the first major product line that came out from after you guys got together with Tier One, you got the VC, and what's the first major product that came out of you guys the first major, I guess, income stream that you developed for Tier
The
One?
first major income stream was basically Elodie Gosheng Chow. She was the talent and I was the sales. In a way, like I was really selling her to multiple brands because during that time she was in her prime. I mean, she never lost her prime, and up until today, she like a lot of brands are still getting her. But basically, like she was the primary reason why people wanted to work with Tier One because we had the Lodia. And then around her were multiple other talents such as Bianca Yao, TNC Pro Team. We had Kuya Nick back then, and all of the other talents that eventually also became very popular people. And then those individuals were what attracted the brands to come into us. And I think the value proposition that we had was we had a full creative team that will take care of the executions. So if all of the other influencers are doing the executions organically and only by themselves, for us we're a full prod team providing creative executions for the best individuals in esports and gaming. And of course your agencies and your brands would want to rather work with a full team than just individuals, right? So we started like we like creating a dent in the market and eventually like getting more brands, getting their trust and all that. And like yeah, I mean, we just became big. I mean, Mountain Dew was probably the first break. Eventually, we got Task Us. Eventually, we got Facebook Gaming, which is still our biggest client to date. And yeah, I mean, things have been doing very well.
Trike, can I just ask you, because sometimes when I talk to other entrepreneurs, they often tell me, sometimes they can't, when they look back at their experience, they can't believe how big they've grown. So it's a surprise to them. What is that one point for you when you were building Tier One, where you finally said, parang, oh my God, we made it, or I can't believe it's gone this big. What was that one, sort of personal realization for you? Wow, I can't believe we did this.
Um, to be honest, I never really thought about it because I feel like we're still small.
Hmm.
Like I really want to be the biggest global gaming brand when it comes to entertainment in esports and gaming, right? And I think we're very far off from that, so I don't think of us as big. But I think that moment for me was just a few weeks ago when we got an office in BGC. Like I felt like that was the moment, right? Like you go into BGC and look at that view and think that hey, we actually are okay.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures. I'm enjoying the view vicariously through you as you
Mm.
as you share all the pictures for that one. And this is the amazing thing. So, kumbaga, the first one really was technically talent management. Really, that's what Tier One did initially. Talent management within the field of gaming, and then there are different types of talents to manage within that gaming industry. I know that you've actually elevated the. I mean, what's nice is that you've kind of sort of elevated how talent management is done at scale, because right now, if you think, I mean, if you look at the traditional world, like I have a talent manager, and that how they manage is very different. There's a long negotiation process. It's not it doesn't seem like you can digitize it, but you were able to technically, you guys are able to scale talent management. How is that? How is that possible for you guys? How did you think about you could scale talent management?
Because we were talents to begin with, right? So I feel like the way to answer this question is you look at the K-pop entertainment companies and they are multi-billion dollar valuated companies. That's like Korea has already shown us how. Like we don't have to replicate the wheel. Like look at how they earn billions from concerts. Look at how they earn millions from retail. How much they earn millions from rights of their music and all that, and all of these are replicatable in gaming. You can create like video highlights. You have retail. You have NFTs now, right? You can have like BTL experiences with them, and I think the way to look at it is we're not about talent management because talent management is such a word that has so much baggage. Like
Okay,
first,
okay.
you so much sometimes people feel like if you're a talent management, you don't own anything. Second is it has low margins. But what Tier 1 is really doing is we are a fandom management. You know what I mean? Like we know how to manage
Fandom management.
fans. We know how to manage people that have fans. We know how to take care of our credibility. We know how to take care of communities. And we know how to create, experiences with these communities with the help of our talents. We see our talents as partners. We don't just see them as, cattles that need to earn in a way. We feel that, like every IP that can come out of Tier 1, whether it's a talent or a media property, is always infinitely scalable because digital is infinitely scalable. So, I mean, imagine being able to have a platform that can create an IP tomorrow that can become a 1 million subscriber platform. And without server costs, without OPEX of like crazy, and without really waiting for multiple years for it to grow, right? In a way, we're kind of like a machinery of IPs.
And that's interesting because I'm getting to appreciate from a different perspective because pasensya na lang, old school talent management, that's my background, the brick and mortar sort of talent management. And you're really opening my eyes as to how to look at, it's not talent management, it's fandom management, right? And that's exactly the formula created by the whole K-pop industry. When you took, when you, in your own fandom management, if you don't mind sharing, no, how did you find of sort of the best practice on how to do fandom management?
Build
When
communities.
people,
I think that's the most
we lost your voice there,
Yeah, yeah.
Tryke.
Sorry, sorry.
There you go.
I think you need to build communities. You need to focus on that. Fortunately for gaming, communities are natural. Like for instance,
Okay.
if you're in Dota 2, then you have a community there. If you're in Valorant, then there's a natural community there. In every game there is a natural community. The question is, how do you cover the community that exists? How do you differentiate yourself from your other stakeholders? There are multiple esports teams in Southeast Asia. Why is Tier 1 different? What is the type of communities we're targeting? What are the type of people you want to become fans of Blacklist? Like it's really creating a certain persona for a brand that you're creating, and that will resonate to people, right? Like the Tier 1 brand is elusive, mysterious, but at the same time hopeful, so people resonate to that because it doesn't really go to you and tell you, hey, come here. It's more of like, it's here, it's yours for the taking, but it will take passion and career for you to, a passion and more for you to get to it. And in the end, like, I think the most important thing is you always need to do your best to have a positive impact because any negative like news or issue that might give you initial traction will hurt you long term in terms of what you want to build in terms of image.
Interesting. So it's really just taking what, your brand equity and to create a very strong brand equity that resonates with your consumers, basically with the communities which they like.
Yeah.
Wow. And with that one, no, so basically first you created fandom management. And if you look at, well, at least from a product standpoint, I'm looking at it, you're also managing esports teams as well. Um, Being fandom management is the number one, kumbaga, number one income stream. How did managing teams come also into the picture? It's organic, no,
um
but when did you start realizing that running it,
so
running
it's
the esports
basically
team?
this, right? Like how we see the world in terms of how Tier 1 thinks is that every KOL is a nuclear powered word of mouth. Like they are technically our connector to communities. They have the
Mhm.
authenticity, the legitimacy, the frequency of content creation that connects to the community that exists. And if you have 1,000 of them, that in turn bring you 120 million in combined following. So for us to manage the 120 million combined fans, what we do is we manage the 1,000 creators, right?
Ah,
So
I
that's
see.
kind of like how we look at it first. And the way to manage these creators and fans, especially in gaming, is that you need to bring them the value chain that I mentioned. So sometimes it's a resource center, such as like data gathering, or maybe it's talent management per se. But the reason why we jumped into creating esports teams is because we needed to give them as a value authenticity and impact. And what does that mean? You can be the most popular comedian in gaming and esports, but what is your impact to society outside of making people laugh, right? So if you're a comedian and you are part of tier 1 and Blacklist is winning on a world level and is bringing glory to the company and to the country that it represents, then you as a creator will have more legitimacy and impact, because from what I'm doing, I'm providing the means for tier 1 to be able to support a team that is now capable of bringing pride to the company and to the country in a way. So in a way, it's the Green Archers model, or I think like that model in a way, or the Blue Eagles model, where first it brings unity. Two, it is a cultural driver. Like it is the tier 1 culture of winning. And third, it brings so much legitimacy and impact, not just to the talents, not just to the fans, but to the whole tier 1, like umbrella, that we are all part of something big. When Blacklist wins, we all win.
And I mean, for me, I mean, the bigger thing also is that it provides content for you guys. It provides content for
Yes,
your content
also.
creators. Kumbaga, it amplifies it. It amplifies as
Yes.
well, and it goes back and forth as well. Amplification goes back and forth from the content creator, the shoutcaster, whoever else, to the team and back. Um, and then with that also as well, I can see now the whole picture that you're trying to create because, well, of course, you're managing the teams, you're managing also talents, but you're also getting more into lifestyle. Like you're coming into, if I'm not mistaken, a clothing or lifestyle brands as well. Is that
Yes.
correct? Tell me a
Yes.
bit more about that one. I mean, it makes sense to me now. It makes sense to me now because you're creating a community with fans. So of course,
Yeah.
merchandising is a great move.
I mean, the way we see it is simple, right? Like, if we created a multi-million machinery to promote other brands, then why not ours, right? In a way, we're cutting the middleman, and the middleman are the brands. In a way where if we have our own products, that the whole tier 1 family in a way can promote and push to market directly, then the revenue will straightly go to us. And I feel like I'm very much confident that the fans by today know that we will take care of those revenues to make sure that we can create more opportunities for gamers like us. You know what I mean? And if they've supported the multiple products that we've promoted before in the past because they are our clients, what more with the tier 1 products, right? Because they know what it represents. It represents the opportunity to be able to support what we're doing. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, because of that, we were top 5 actually in Lazada for sportswear. The most revenues that we got in terms of gross was last December. It was 3 million pesos in a month
Wow.
for only
Incredible.
1,000 peso worth of jersey. So imagine.
Wow. And with that, no, I mean, I'm sure your brain is working overtime. You're an entrepreneur, so you're thinking of a lot of new, ideas that will iterate from the brand that you're creating for what tier 1 is. What are the other products that you're looking to create as well from this one? What are going to be emerging for us in the near future
So
coming
we
out of tier
actually
1?
created a subsidiary called Black Box. So Black Box is just a purely retail machinery for the whole tier one inventory and arm, in which of course initially it produced for blacklist, it produced for tier one, the brand itself, but it wants to be able to create items for its existing talents. It can be an Alodia brand, it can be a Bianca Yao brand, it can be a Regine brand, or an Eli Gaming brand or a Dexy brand, and whatever it is that they produce, we will produce it for them to be able to add to the value chain that we've created in the talent management space, and to unlock a new revenue stream at the same time. And of course, to be able to bring that free billboard out there in a way, because that's our community's way of supporting the individuals that we're managing.
And for people who also are looking at what Tier One is doing right now, how can they still sort of other entrepreneurs who are in the sort of gaming ecosystem, how can they participate? I guess in the fruits of what Tier One is developing. Can they participate
Um,
as talents? Can they participate? What parts can they still be part of your own ecosystem and be entrepreneurs?
there's a lot. First, you can be a supplier, right? Like, I mean, we need a lot of suppliers, whether it's an events management supplier, or a construction supplier, or I don't know, a production company that can create shows for us, or like a supplier for shirts or whatever not, right? Like, if you're an entrepreneur that way, like, you can be our supplier. Second is, you can partner with us if you have a product or something with our IP. I mean, if it's something that you're interested in. Third is, basically, if you are an individual, you can apply and work on the back end, because currently we have 150 people working in the company now. So all of these are professionals. They graduated from top schools. Some of them are some of them are even from like foreign countries and whatnot. So I think that's second. Third is, if you want to be a talent, like, yeah, that's also an opportunity. Fourth is, esports player. If you want to be an esports player, if you want to be a caster, like, all of these opportunities are available in tier one. Of course, it will, like, the number of slots will depend on the growth of the company. So hopefully you support us more so that we can bring in more jobs to the esports ecosystem.
And having said that, let's say that people want to become talents. I mean, just syempre they have to have, there's a certain barrier to entry. What are you expecting of your talents, and what are you expect in terms of our e-gamers? Just what is that? What must they have to be able to qualify to become part of the?
So we've created a framework that's very linear. You can start off with Amplify Academy. After you go through Amplify Academy, then you get to become an Amplify creator. After going through Amplify, you then become a prodigy, and that's the only time you can become a tier one talent after that. So in a way, that's your grade school, high school, college, graduate. But if you're already a really, really popular person that wants to get into gaming and has no idea in gaming, like a basketball player or a showbiz personality or a musician, then sometimes you take a shortcut and get into the prodigy program, straight up. But yeah, I mean, we've already created that value chain so that the people can actually go in, because the future that you want is something similar to K-pop, like what I mentioned, that they can come in, they can train, try out, debut, see what happens.
Wow. You talked a bit about the future. You want to be a global gaming, sports and e-gaming company. What do you see yourself like 5 years from now, Trike? I know that you've got your investors coming in. Do you see yourself eventually going IPO? Do you see yourself eventually, uh, going into newer territories? What do you see yourselves 5 years from now
We've
for Tier One?
already went into multiple series of funding, but not so much. But of course, the end goal is an IPO, obviously. Hopefully in Nasdaq, or like wherever else. I don't know. I'm not looking at an exit right now. I am just looking at scaling the company, and I think the key of our scalability is to really be able to break the code, and that's our company's that's Blacklist's catchphrase. We need to break the code of bringing the tier one playbook into the rest of the geographies that we want to be in. One, and I think second is, if we can really create a formidable Web3 play. Because if you are a strong Web2 esports media property, and a creator management company, then maybe you are a 10x. But combine that with Web3, then you're a 1 million X.
Wow.
Imagine all the IPs that come out with a combination of Web3, NFTs, and other things, right? Like Web3 needs marketing, and we are the most attention grabbing machinery that was created in gaming here in Asia. So if attention is the currency, then yeah, I mean we should be good.
Well, bravo to the great job that you guys have been doing over here. And I'm very proud that this is a Philippine company, really pioneering not just here, but the rest of the region. Now, Trike, you've had so many experiences in the past. You've gained so much from, from your humble beginnings with Mireski up to being tier one right now. And there are many entrepreneurs, whether they are in the gaming industry, in the startup, or even traditional. You've picked up a lot of things along the way. If you don't mind, no, as we start closing out our conversation, are there three, I guess, business and life hacks that you've learned that you want to share with starting off entrepreneurs who are listening to the podcast right now?
Hmm. I think some of the answer. I think I can start with some of the tier one core values that we've created. The first one is be the answer. And what I mean by that is you need to be able to have the solutions to your own problems, right? Because sometimes the solutions won't come to you. Sometimes the solution has to be from you. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's a problem with some entrepreneurs where if the challenges are too big or are something too difficult, they just want to give up because they don't have an answer. So the answer sometimes won't clearly come from you, but you need to be the answer. You need to find the answer by being the answer. I think that's one. Two, it's another core value of ours. Like in tier one, we never settle, right? Like I feel like at some point, if you're an entrepreneur, you get tired and you tend to think, okay, we're good. This is it. This can be stable. But stability doesn't truly exist in any entrepreneurial world. From my perspective, even Nokia at one point was number one. Where are they now, right? Like the only stable thing in the world is innovation. I truly believe that. And you need to be able to be the driver of innovation in your industry because if you're not doing that, somebody else will. And then that will disrupt you. And then you'll end up saying, that should have been me. You know what I mean? So if you're not putting the work every day and finding, ways to be to give room for innovation, then you're settling. So never settling doesn't mean you don't need to marry or you don't need to stop. It's just making sure that you're creating the best environment to innovate. I think that's number two. And then number three, discipline, integrity, um, long-term vision is really what you need in the end because like sometimes the problem with a lot of people is that they mostly think big, but their discipline is small. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, a lot of people have great ideas, and that's what I hate, to be honest, here in the Philippines. Because in the Philippines, like, ideas are so much over glorified that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when people think of an idea and somebody else executes it, then they think that, hey, I came up with that first. But in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, like, if you have 12 hours of doing nothing, I'm not referring to that person, but I'm just saying whoever else can think of anything. Like ideas are free. What have you done with it, right? And I think the most important thing is you need to be able to have the discipline and the capability to execute because ideas mean nothing. It means shit. You know what I mean? So I'm
Exactly,
not
exactly.
I'm not
Mhm.
fascinated with people who think great because thinking is nothing. That's me. And second is like integrity, because if you have integrity, then you build trust. And if you build trust, then you build loyalty. And if you build loyalty, you create continuity, and continuity is sustainability. So if you really want growth, you need all that, and it's all starts with integrity. Last but not the least, it's vision setting, I guess, right? Like,
Mhm.
you need to be able to have a big vision, because if you don't have a big vision, then the people around you will not dream big also, or worse, they will have bigger dreams than you, right? So I feel like if you're an entrepreneur, as much as it sounds crazy, it doesn't have to be next year, it doesn't have to be 2 years from now, but your dream needs to be the biggest in the room. I truly believe that. So you don't have to say it out loud initially. You know how to say that, especially when you have nothing yet. But in your head, in your mind, like, you need to know that this is where I want to be X years from now.
Wow. Right, that's going to be your next product stream. Your next income stream is the ebook that you'll come out with about the tier one road to business and life. And this is really great. This is a really great session for me. I get a lot of insights. I really appreciate how you perceive the industry and how you're so generous in sharing what you've learned. Right, for people who actually want to sign up with the tier one, if they want to become a talent or for esports, where can they visit?
You can probably check our website, www.tier.one, tier.one. I think we've put some applications there, but that part is of course very difficult because there's a lot of people who are applying, because for them it's like, hey, I can play and earn. Why not? Right? So because of that, we have so much applicants. But yeah, that yeah.
Give it a try. Give it a try. Might as well, diba? If you've got a big vision for yourself, then give it a try.
Yep.
Again, Tryke, thanks so much for guesting here on the podcast. We really appreciate it. To all the guests, I hope you enjoyed Tryke Gutierrez of Tier 1. We will see you in the next podcast. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.